We're back to the Total Education Celebrity Show, powered by the Beach Lifestyle Celebrity segment. Again, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. And I guess it's really, really interesting, my guest. And I didn't plan this out or anything. I just went to to Darren Hardy's event this weekend. It was unbelievable, the High Performance Summit. And I was just absolutely blown away by Darren. And then I booked somebody looking at specifically enough involved in a really great documentary movie. I was blown away by the trailer, said I got to have him on the show. So I now have 30 minutes with him where I don't know if I would ever have that opportunity if it wasn't for radio. So I want to welcome to the program Evan Money, best-selling author, global entrepreneur, and star and producer of Words of Art. Evan, thanks for calling.
Neil, great to be here, sir.
Absolutely, and I want to know your story. Now you're on the hot seat, Evan. Basically, can you tell me in the nutshell, growing up, did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Did you always want to be an author? Did you want to have a brand, or did it just come after time? Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Wow, Neil, it's a long journey, and what's funny is to this day, my bride and I, when we go to parties or whatever, this or that, my wife still looks at me and says, honey, I still don't know what to tell people when they ask me what you do.
That's what my wife says, Evan, all the time.
She's like, well, you're making movies, you have this business, you have this, you have that, you have all this stuff going on, and so back in the beginning, it took me, Neil, probably about 12 to 15 years to recover from the public school system. So I was not one of those that thrived in that environment. I was just challenged, and I thought, again, there was something wrong with me. Why is it that I'm not happy sitting behind a desk or doing the same thing everyone else is doing? And so it was really a journey for me, and so I see these people that, you read all the stories and all these successful people, they go, oh, yes, I knew what I wanted to do when I was a kid, or, I stepped into the college campus and 2 weeks later I have $1 billion company and all these stuff that, yeah, that's great for them, but for people like me, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I recently spoke at a college, and they were doing an entrepreneur deal, and, I stood up and bared my soul and said, look, when I was your age, as scary as that sounds, Neil, I was like, I had no clue what I was doing. Nothing. No idea whatsoever.
Me either. Absolutely.
Yeah, I went to Surf Bum University, which was for 4 years. My whole life was just about where am I going to surf next. And so during that time, I discovered, okay, this is what, things that I didn't want to do or I didn't want to end up like. But as you discover going around the best beaches in the world, you notice that, gosh, there's some really nice houses on these beaches. And, wow, these guys have a pretty neat lifestyle. And so I realized there were some things that I wanted, and I said, okay, there's got to be a way to get those and still have time to surf all the time. And so it was such a long process for me, and it's still going. There's businesses that I'm looking at starting this week that have some unique opportunities, and it's a total process. So I'd love to say it was, oh, yes, I woke up and I want to be this. So so all the ADD visionaries out there that are listening, I give you hope.
Well, you're definitely giving us hope, and I'll say for me as well. And it's in the story when you said, "What does your husband do?" Jennifer can't answer that question for me either. So I think we're definitely two peas in the pod. I'm still a green entrepreneur, 2 years in the biz. I know you've been around a while and have been successful. What would you say specifically when you knew you started to take off? This is something you'd be really good at. You talked about kind of living your passion by enjoying life and then saying, well, I'm not really going to enjoy life unless I can be successful. So once that light bulb went on, what did you do next?
Wow, and it's funny because going back to your first question, the light bulb never really went on for me. It was sort of like a dimmer switch where it was just this slow light that got a little brighter, a little brighter, a little brighter, a little brighter. I read a great book. I'm searching my massive library here as we're talking, trying to give the author full credit. I just know he's known as G, and he's an Indian, came over, had the turban on the head and the whole deal, and, went to high school like that and had a huge culture shock, and he ended up starting these 2 mega billion-dollar companies. And he said he woke up one day and realized that he was a multimillionaire. And so the next day, he went out and bought a Lamborghini online and had it delivered. And the guy delivered it. He realized that he didn't know how to drive a stick shift. So he paid the truck driver who delivered his car to teach him how to drive a stick. And so I relate with that because I didn't realize that I had become successful. And it was kind of funny. I see all these people striving, when I get to this point, and, they keep thinking that there's going to be an arrival stage, Neil, if that makes sense. Well, when I get here, I'll be successful. When I win this, I'll be great. When I have this, I'll do this. So I personally own a Green Bay Packers Super Bowl ring. I have a friend who's a coach for the team. I have affiliation with the team. I'm technically a part owner of the team. And there's a big G, diamond-encrusted, massive thing on the ring. And I tell everyone the G stands for God's greatness in them. And you're already preloaded with greatness. You just have to let it out. And so the light bulb for me took forever because I kept thinking greatness was out there or success was out there. And I didn't realize it was an inside game. And when I finally woke up and realized, oh, my gosh, I have the 3 pillars of real success. I have single-digit body fat. I'm extremely healthy. I have a beautiful bride, and we get remarried in a different state or country every year. We've now been married over 17 years. I have an awesome, healthy family, and I have this financial, successful business. I've got health, relationships, and finances. I have everything that everybody wants. And it's like, what am I looking for? I already have it. And so at that point is when the dimmer switch finally illuminated me enough to go, wow, I don't have to start chasing things anymore. I can just really enjoy what I have and focus on things like the Richard Branson approach. For him, he looks at a new business and says, is this going to be fun? And if it's not fun, he doesn't do it. And so he's got a different definition of fun. But for me, I started realizing, wait a minute, I don't have to get this certain number of decimal points on the screen to be successful, or to be happy, or to be whatever. It's like I'm already living my dream. So how do I expand on that and appreciate more of what I have rather than chase, search, and try to find something that doesn't exist.
So you had your dreams come true, basically, and kind of getting there, Evan, you had no idea how you got there. But you mentioned the word God in ways. So when did you find your faith? Because I think your faith led to the success. Am I on the right track on that, Evan?
Well, again, to me, I specialize in taking the long way around the block. So I admire all these people that that figure it out quickly and easily, and that's just not what it was for me. So it was the same in my faith. I struggled. I had a very integrity-driven mom. I was raised by a single mother, and there's a lot of us that already know about that. I did have a dad, but he didn't really know how to be a dad. There was mom during the week, dad on the weekends. So it took me a while to get over the dad thing, which I put in my first book called Take Action Now. It's interesting. I'll share this briefly with you, Neil, that I tripled my income the same year that I finally forgave my dad. So I do a whole talk on forgiveness, and I say, do it for the money. I mean, just forgive it for the money. It's so worth it. And so that was really part of the spiritual growth for me because, my mom was very integrity-driven but was not very successful financially. And so I learned growing up in the 80s, as a teenager in the 80s, that integrity doesn't work too well. I see all these books now, they're about integrity and this and this. It's like nobody wanted to hear that in the 80s. So my mom, therefore, was not doing very well financially. I was helping with the family, doing odd jobs and doing all this. And I was like, well, if that's where integrity gets you, I don't want any part of it. And so I mastered the gray areas. So I didn't necessarily go in the black areas, but I was really good in the gray. And I could, you can always justify anything. So I lived in those worlds for a while, and I finally got introduced in my mid-20s to a group of successful businessmen that were very outspoken about their faith, but more in a Zig Ziglar type, where they teached biblical principles, they didn't preach biblical principles. That's what first opened my ear to it. I'm like, wait a minute, I've never heard anyone like Zig talk about success and God in the same sentence.
Right.
And I was like, that's interesting. And so, again, another process took me a long way around the block, and when I finally realized, hey, you know what? There is a God who loves me. No, he did send his son to die for my sins. This is the best deal I've ever seen. I don't know why everyone else doesn't take advantage of it. And then when I got that clarity, then I realized, okay, that's part one, but part two is living it out.
Wow.
And the living it out part with forgiving people and doing that kind of stuff, the living it out part was the challenge. And so that was a continual, to this day, it's a continuing peak-to-peak growth process. So I just want your listeners to know that there isn't this illustrious arrival point.
No.
There's times to this day where I do business transactions or something happens and I'm like, do I really have to go through this forgiveness thing again? I thought we did this already. I thought I was done with that. But it's just a constant growing process. So, again, it's going from peak to peak, from mountain peak to mountain peak. There's not a peak where you just sit and end up on. When you climb to a mountain peak, you realize, hey, I got a great view from up here. Wow, look at all this. Oh, my gosh, there's another mountain peak over there. That's why people look at like a Richard Branson who has 450 companies. They go, well, what's wrong with this guy? Well, he climbs a mountain peak, has a different view, and goes, hey, let's look at that peak over there. Let's go climb it. So the peak-to-peak principle really explains a lot. And the last thing I'll add, Neil, is that when you go peak to peak, sometimes to get to the next peak, you have to go through the valley. And that's not necessarily the fun part. And that's a part that a lot of TV shows and movies and press, everybody leaves out. Nobody likes to talk about the journey. They just like to focus on, oh, look, this guy's at the peak, gosh. And we all think it happened overnight, but that's never the case.
It didn't, Evan. And when you talked about finding God in your 20s through these entrepreneurs, explain that point you made, that they teach biblical. They're not preaching biblical principles; they're teaching them in their business. Can you explain that to our audience before we take a break?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, that's really a Zig Ziglarism, and we originally booked Zig he was the first interview for our movie called Words of Art, and the listeners can check out the preview at wordsofartmovie.com. That's wordsofartmovie.com. And so I was so excited to interview Zig, but Zig ended up having an appointment with heaven. So we missed out on Zig, but we got to interview Tom, and he was also what we were going to go for. But I was envisioning the father and son and hold out. But I was reviewing all my Ziglar cassette tapes. I know that's a foreign word to some of our listeners, but I still have some of those. So I was reviewing all my Zig stuff. And, again, he was the first person that, again, he wasn't preaching. He was just teaching biblical truths. And I think a lot of times what we see as far as faith and religion is we see people preaching or doing things that they're not necessarily living out. And so what magnetized me to people like Zig Ziglar and other people was that they were actually living what they were teaching. And they would share their failures, and they would say, hey, this is something I'm struggling in, but just like you, I'm getting through it. And I was like, wow, that's the kind of person I want to become. I want to be someone who's successful financially and not ashamed of it, but at the same time understanding that, hey, I'm not perfect, and there's no arrival, and it's, hey, I'm getting through this at the same time, but it's not a hitting somebody over the head with a Bible and saying, you should do this and you should do that. Another term that I'll give to your audience that really struck with me, and this is one of the reasons my bride and I remarry in a different state or country every year, is it's lifestyle evangelism. Lifestyle evangelism. I never talk to anybody and say, oh, you should do this or you should do that or da-da-da-da-da. I just live my life. And that's the example. And that's how I work with our kids. I don't want to talk to my kids. I want to show my kids.
Yes, by model.
I show my kids, this is how you treat a woman. This is how you do this. This is how you do that through my actions, because your words are only going to get so far.
Well, absolutely, Evan, and I completely agree with you in so many ways that the fact is a lot of times people look at biblical principles and they preach them and say, oh, you're making too much money. That's not the case. God never said that anything was wrong with money. The problem is when you make money your ultimate object. When you chase the money, you lose out. But if you're helping impact people, and that leads to our next segment as when we get back about Words of Art. I was watching the trailer, and again, they're looking to impact people for the next generation. I almost can remember what Darren Hardy said that basically you're writing your legacy. how you're going to be looked at when you die, and how many people were you able to impact, how many people were you able to help, and all those things. And I see that's the passion in you. When we get back, more with Evan Money from Words of Art, best-selling author, and much, much more. You're listening to Told-Education Celebrity Show on the Told-Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Told-Education Celebrity Show on the Told-Education Network, powered by the Beach Lifestyle Celebrity segment. TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. And Evan Money, man, I tell you, if I could have more time with him just to ask questions, it's amazing. And then I watched the trailer right before I interviewed you, Evan, and it just spoke to me. The ability to look at these people and look at how they're trying to transform people's lives and are successful and impact people's lives. Is that how you started the idea of Words of Art, the film? Tell us a little bit about it.
No, great question, Neil. But let me go back, previous segment, real quick. I want to address the white elephant in the room, because I know there's a lot of people listening that want to know, hey, is Money his real last name? And so I want to let everybody know that, yes, indeed, Money is really my last name, and to my bride's credit, 17 years ago, she was unashamed to marry money. So that's a big thing to do in Los Angeles. You know, other countries are not so here, but here in L.A., to have someone unashamedly married money, you know, that was her deal. So I'd love to be a fly on the wall, you know, when she talked to her parents. Yes, I'm going to marry money, and we talked about previous section about, you know, in the Bible, it talks about the love of money is a sin. But in my case, it's okay. I just want to let everybody know that that's all right. And so the last thing you brought up, Neil, that I want to touch on is, again, you're right. It's not necessarily, you know, the love and the chasing of money is the challenge, but it's not necessarily the money. It can be anything. I see people chasing positions, chasing titles, chasing power. You know, it's those things that it's not what you're chasing, it's the chase that is causing the challenge. Whereas it's instead of chasing that, it's understanding you don't need to chase that. You can just live your dream and you can aspire to get there. But it's that chasing for the sake of chasing rather than, hey, like we talk about in the movie, which will transition to Words of Art. Success is one thing, impact is another. Oh. And that's the title of the film. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are successful, but like Darren Hardy said, what's the impact? And I think it cuts both ways, Neil, because you look at, you know, pick your favorite celebrity falling off the cliff lately, you know, right?
Yes.
So big success, right?
Yes.
But what's their impact? Their impact is drugs, this, that, you know, this divorce, you know, they have this negative impact. And so this movie is focusing on, hey, here's some successful, amazingly successful people that have had this, you know, generational impact. So we started with people like Ziglar, who 20 years ago I listened to his cassette tape, and it totally changed my life. And it's like, well, how many lives has he changed? You know, if you look at all the personal growth experts, they can all point back to a Zig Ziglar tape. And so you think about that impact from someone like that, or Denis Waitley that some people may be familiar with. And, you know, he was the one responsible for training the Olympic athletes in the 80s and talking about all the stuff that they do now that's old hat. He pioneered that. I mean, what an impact from such an amazing man. And so the story of the movie really comes from, Neil, I was watching a documentary, and it was a documentary I was really excited about. It was made by a famous person. It was really cool. It was something I was really interested in. And I watched it, and I enjoyed it, but I was disappointed at the same time, Neil, because I was like, wow, this really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You know, and that's not negative because I know what it takes to make a movie, but I just have this deep down, like basically my spirit, God telling me, hey, you can do better than that. And I was like, okay, so I could be like most people, sit around and complain about something or go blog on it. Oh, this movie was terrible, or this, or this, or this. But instead, I chose to take action. And I said, hey, I really can do something. Why don't I make my own? And so I'm not a filmmaker by trade. I don't have a background in filmmaking. Me and my brother used to goof around with the old VHS camera. Remember those with the big block VHS tape? So we goofed around back then and did all that. But I said, hey, I'd like to make a movie, and I like to honor these personal growth icons like Zig Ziglar, like Denis Waitley, these kind of guys, get to most of them before they die, and do some of the newer guys, like a Joel Osteen, like a Darren Hardy, and people like that. And that was my vision. That's all I had. I had a vision, and then God gave me the name of the movie in the shower. He gave me words of art, and I was like, okay, let's run with this. And so I found a partner, per se, someone who was a director who made documentaries before and understood the personal growth market. And I said, here's my idea. And he said, oh, that sounds really cool. And so I got his information, and I called him the next week, and he goes, wow, you actually called me. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, do you know when people come up to me and talk to me about stuff and then never call?
Oh, my.
And I was like, no, that's not me. And it's the purpose of this call for people listening. If you want to know the real secret to success, or, what's the secret, the magic ingredient, it really comes down to taking action on the ideas you already have.
Oh.
Now, Neil, you and I are guilty of this, and so I'm going to put you on the spot, but I know personally, I know you're out in the, terrible towel land in Pennsylvania, but I know for a fact, Neil, that you and everyone else listening to this show, all the millions of listeners, they have literally a $10 million shower in their house or their apartment or whatever. And I know you're going, wait a minute, what are you talking about? We all have $10 million worth of ideas sitting in our shower that we've got inspired by, and, that'd be a great idea. And guess what? They're still there. Okay? Still there. So one little trick for your audience, what I do is I went out and invested $12, $12.95, in a waterproof writing tablet. You can get them online. You can get them at any dive store, whatever. They're $12, $13, whatever. And it allows me to write notes while I'm in the shower. So I still have the little handwritten note in the shower that says words of art. And so I took that piece of paper, and I got it out of the shower, and I took action on that idea. And so I called this director back, and I said, what's it going to take to make this movie? He goes, well, it's going to take X amount of dollars. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And then he's like, okay, you got to go find the people to be in it. And so I had to, here's the secret. People want to know, well, how'd you get, Darren Hardy and Ziglar and Joel Osteen and all these amazing people in your movie? Well, I had to take action and call them. And so here's a little secret. None of the people in the film called me. No. I had to call them.
Exactly. I want to jump. Let me jump in for 1 second, Evan, and that's the truth. And honestly, you got to go after it. And when I try to get the major celebrities on my show, I constantly am like, well, who am I going to connect with next? For example, a great conversation with Nancy Lieberman yesterday on my show, and I asked Nancy, I said, Nancy, you keep talking about Larry Fitzgerald. Can you get me Larry Fitzgerald? She said, yes, I'll get you Larry. That's all you have to do. If I would have been afraid to ask her, especially when I have 2 minutes with her on the phone, then I never had that opportunity. So you never, ever should wait. And you're speaking to me so much, Evan, through this Darren Hardy thing and saying, and when he talked about specifically not going out and doing what your idea is. Oh, Evan, you're right. I am at fault for that too, for sure.
Well, I mean, again, we all are. I mean, I still have $10 million of ideas in my shower, but at least I've gotten a few out of there. But for a lot of your listeners, I'll give you a quick app that they can use. This is an app and an acronym. It's AAAP, so it's app, AAAP. And the first thing has to do with number one is you have to take action, okay? Now, the second A is you actually have to ask, right? You had to ask, hey, can we get Larry Fitzgerald on the show? Ask and you shall what, Neil?
Receive.
There you go. You have to ask, okay? So you have to take action, you have to ask, and you have to be aware, okay? You have to be aware of your opportunities and be aware of the people you're working with and be aware of, hey, you know what? If I don't take action, I don't ask now, it's probably never going to happen. And then the P part of the app you can put in front or behind, and that's pray. And so what a lot of people get confused is they go, well, I prayed, and so I'm waiting for Joel Osteen to call me and be in my movie. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. So in my opinion, in my experience, rather than waiting for Joel Osteen to call me, I took action and I asked, okay? And I think that's the part that a lot of people miss out on is, you know what, hey, even Moses still had to actually take action and go talk to Pharaoh, right? You know, he had to lift up his hand across the Red Sea. And you look at all the biblical examples, there's some action involved there. So a lot of people, you know, are big fans, and I enjoyed the movie The Secret. You know, it was a great movie. It was really focused on one principle, which is the law of attraction. And I think a lot of people get confused because it really is a two-parter. It's the law of attraction, and also the law of action has to go with that, because success doesn't come breaking in and sneaking into your house. You need to actually go outside and take some action.
All right, so so much to ask, but so little time in this. You probably learned so much from this documentary movie, haven't you? Getting to talk to all these people. And it must have been amazing putting it together with all those great people. Would you agree? Such a learning experience?
Oh, honestly, Neil, I feel a little sheepish because obviously the movie, you know, we literally have 16 hours worth of footage. So you've got an hour and a half movie, and you got 16 hours worth of footage. I'm really like, oh my gosh, I'm getting the most out of it because I get to get around these people. I get to ask them all these great questions, and once they realize that you're sincere and you're really into it, like Denis Waitley, he, after the footage, first of all, we got to film at his house, and then he took us out to lunch. I got a great picture of him signing one of my old cassette tapes that I've been carrying around for 20 years. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh. I mean, even if I never put the movie out, it was the greatest experience of my life, learning from all these people and having them open up and realize, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got 500 years of collected wisdom and greatness. And so, honestly, I didn't do it for that reason, but I'm just like, wow, I've got the best seat in the house. This is the best thing ever.
And Darren talked about that with Success Magazine, the same thing, that basically he gets to interview the most brilliant people in the world, and he gets to learn from them and take their ideas and roll with them. And I see that, Evan, as the opportunity that you were able to do. And I know my listeners out there, especially that are fans of these people you've talked about, Evan, can't wait to see the movie. When is it released? Going to be released? And ultimately, how can our listeners find out information on you and learn more about you, purchase your books and everything?
Oh, wow. You know, I really, really appreciate that. So as far as the movie goes, the movie world is an art, not a science, for sure. So the first thing they can do is visit wordsofartmovie.com. And there's a sneak peek trailer on there that you were alluding to. We put out, if you join a little email list there, we even put out a sneak peek clip of me with Darren Hardy and some of the great lessons that he taught. So if you're a Darren Hardy fan, you want to see some behind-the-scenes stuff, there's a little link on that website, wordsofartmovie.com. And if you're really enjoying, you know, some of this ADD, visionary, entrepreneur, you know, type stuff that you're getting from me, you know, I would love to encourage you any way I can. I would send you to the best site to go to is I would check out evanmoneylive.com. That's evanmoneylive.com, and you can get a little gist of what we're all about and how we can help and serve you. And again, it's really about saying, hey, if someone, you know, like me, this bald-headed kid who had no clue what he was doing, can create this life of his dreams, I'd be more than honored to share and teach anyone that's really interested how they could do the same.
Well, fantastic, Evan. Definitely going to have you back on the show. I'm going to invite, specifically when the movie is launched, to promote again any of them. Darren, Joel, anyone you want to invite that you were part of the movie with to talk about it more in detail, you're welcome to come back next month. When are you expecting to launch this?
Well, Neil, it's all in the hands of post-production now. So we're thinking the movie will launch probably, I'd say, January, February of next year.
Awesome. In limited release, where you again? That's all up to the hands of God, too, right? We'll definitely, trust me. Anyone that's open to promoting it, we're going to tap those sources. Well, I'm here. I'm going to definitely after Darren's training, I'm there. And whenever you get a chance to talk to Darren, say one of your students came and interviewed me on the radio. That'd be the funny, interesting conversation I'm sure you'll have possibly with him.
Absolutely. And then real quick, for you, Neil, for you taking the time is a blessing to you and also to some of the folks that will sign up at wordsofartmovie.com. We are going to be giving away, but I'm going to step out and let you know right now, Neil, if you can make it out, I will put you on the VIP red carpet Hollywood premiere list. Now, I can't guarantee that you're going to sit next to Joel Osteen and Darren Hardy, but I can get you in the same room and get you on the red carpet and have a great time. So if you'd like for me to, I can put you and your bride on the list and have you out for the VIP red carpet Hollywood premiere. What do you say, Neil?
When it happens, hey, I'm going to say yes, and I'll tell my wife. That'll be a great present for us to go out. Absolutely.
Yes, but please do not send me the bill for your bride's new dress that she's going to want. So I'm warning you ahead of time.
Not at all. You're the best, Evan, but we got to keep promoting it. So next month, let's have someone else on that's part of the movie, and let's keep rocking it out to promote it for you.
Nice. Neil, really appreciate it.
All right, Evan, good talking to you, and then everyone go check that out. And you're listening to the Total Education Celebrity Show on the Total Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment.